I've put about 20 hours into Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I've collected 21 crystal skulls and fully leveled 4 of Ryu's weapons in this game. While I haven't 100%ed everything just yet, I am pretty happy to say that this is the first game in a very long time that I've actually wanted to complete everything eventually. While I really enjoyed my 20-odd hours in the game, there are some flaws that have left me wanting to take a bit of a break. So without further ado, my name is Wolf with Honorbound Gaming, and this is our review of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Ryu is the pinnacle of what you would think of when you think of a ninja. Hyper-lethal, super agile, and very acrobatic. In combat, he's very responsive and agile. You can run on walls, jump off of them, go right into a mid-air attack to immediately fatally slash an opponent's neck. Enemies will do the same thing. This movement and combat system does a really good job of selling the fantasy of high-octane ninja combat. Levels are designed with combat mobility in mind. You're really encouraged to bounce off walls and enemies, as well as around them, in order to find new and more powerful angles of attack. However, there is a pretty big issue here that I take with the camera control. This is a game from 2008, and this game is more along the lines of a remaster than a remake. It's got a nice coat of paint, but the game is essentially the way it was originally. The camera doesn't really track very well. Manually moving it is clunky. There is a manual reset button that allows you to set the camera immediately behind Ryu, which can help, but honestly, I felt like most of the time the game was actively encouraging me not to mess with the camera at all, which sucks because it can sometimes lead to you not seeing the combat in its full glory. Your movements will be obfuscated by enemies in the way of the camera, and while everything is cool, and it sells, again, the idea of being surrounded by many enemies and sort of slicing your way through, it hides the brilliant animation work here, and that's really frustrating. Additionally, the camera can be frustrating during some of the platforming levels, and while the game seems very self-aware of the camera control issues and Ryu's out-of-combat sluggishness, at least on the PC Game Pass version, using my Xbox controller, there really isn't a way to die because of platforming jank, so to say. Now, as you're bouncing around and being acrobatic and really destroying your enemies, you'll notice very quickly that Ninja Gaiden 2 has some fantastic enemy variety. From basic enemy ninja and their trusty hounds who carry swords, to werewolves and demons of various kinds. While there are no overtly stated weaknesses for each of these enemies, their behaviors might push you to try a faster or longer weapon to deal with them than just using the dragon sword all the time. Definitely makes you feel like you have to strategize with certain enemy encounters and enemy compositions in order to push through some of these areas without hard gating you into using specific weapons, which is really, really good because Ryu has a lot of weapons. He's got 9 melee weapons and 2 ranged weapons. The melee weapons all have light and heavy attacks, as well as a myriad of combos that can be unlocked while you upgrade the weapons at Muramasa's shops, which are littered sort of all around the levels of the game. I did find myself, at least initially, executing most combos by luck rather than by learning. For any future entries, I'd hope that they include some sort of combo tagging system, like some developers have included in more recent action and fighting games. Certain input combinations have a real practical application in combat beyond just making the hit counter go up and maximizing the amount of essence that you'll get from any fight. Several weapons have very specific combinations for dealing with being surrounded, maybe attacking from a certain position with your enemy, whether being airborne or on the ground or coming off of a wall or jumping off of an opponent's head, that have real practical uses that make sense. So while initially I was doing them by luck, I did have a few that I took the time to learn and drill in certain areas of the game so that I could apply them in future combat scenarios. Exploration in the campaign has real benefits. While the levels are very linear, there are often short side paths that players can explore that usually end in opening an item crate or finding an item store, finding a new enemy encounter. Item crates sometimes include healing or mana restoring items. Other times they include essences that can restore health or mana, as well as being used as currency at Muramasa's stores, which can also be at the end of these alternate paths. The story is alright. It serves primarily as a justification for cool action. Ryu is a strong silent type protagonist who gets all the ladies, who all have fantastic character design, by the way. No complaints there. There is a neat little subplot about the Spider Ninja clan coming to truly love Genshin, and it really has a decent amount to say about the negative effects of generational hatred that really isn't told to you. You have to find these sort of story tidbits by really paying attention to the pickups around on the level and taking the care to read them. It's not a huge narrative, but it is big enough that it helped contextualize the final conversation between Ryu and Genshin better for me. And especially the end credits sort of walk away scene becomes way more impactful when you understand that Ryu isn't necessarily a guy that revels in the bloodshed, and neither is Genshin. Not really. It's all means to an end. Performance-wise, I was pretty disappointed with this game. I've been running the game on high per the game's auto-detect settings. Didn't recommend I turn on ray tracing, so I did not. And I've experienced a solid 30 FPS with only very rare frame dips that I haven't been able to really replicate. While the frame rate is stable, it is disappointing that the game cannot hit 60 FPS on high when it's being run on a 6900 XT and a 5950X in 2025 for a game that most of at least the systems in the background are from 2008. I've spoken on the campaign a little bit, but I want to touch on some additional sort of mission features that the game has. There is a chapter challenge mode, which allows you to go back to return to prior missions in the campaign with automatically fully upgraded gear at any difficulty level, which was really fun because it opened the game up for me to learn how weapons that I might not have wanted to use in the moment operated, and what their strengths and weaknesses were, what the combinations were, and what I might want to use if I do a punishing mode or a very hard difficulty run. The other challenge mode in this game are tag missions. They feel very out of place. They're very restrictive arena survival game modes where you are allowed to play as any two of the 4 playable characters in the game that you can switch to on the fly in each one of these tag missions. The one that you're not using at the moment is still present, contributing to the objective, just controlled by AI, and you can switch to them using the D-pad. Now in this mode, I haven't talked about them yet, you can choose to play as Ryu, Ayane, Momoji, and Rachel. Now, those other 3 characters other than Ryu, in this version of the game, they all have side story missions in the campaign that are all relatively short. And during those missions, they were not really fun to play. I feel like weaker, less versatile versions of Ryu that you don't get enough time with to really understand their mechanical difference, if there really are any. Now, in this mode, I said you can play as Ryu. You can play as a nerfed Ryu. You basically get 1 ranged weapon, 1 melee weapon, 1 Nimpo, and that's it. The other characters are not expanded at all in this mode, and with the exception of one thing where certain characters, and I didn't find any indicator as to when and with whom these were possible, you can execute sort of a team-up Nimpo instead of using your regular selected spell. And in these instances, when I first played it, I was kind of shocked. I was playing with Ryu and Ayane, and I tried to cast Ryu's basic fire spell, and instead, it gave me a whole new animation, which was kind of neat, and gave me an effect that I was not looking for. And I couldn't opt into it, couldn't opt out of it. It seemed to be tied to whether or not the other partner had mana left, but that was the only thing that I could tell for sure. This mode feels like a gutted co-op mode that was repurposed to be 1 player and may have been pretty fun if I were playing it with someone else. You know, if you could do these team-up spells and other team-up attacks at will instead of being forced into them, that would be kind of neat. But I would really like to see if they revisit this concept. Either they make a mode that is actually co-op, or they use the tag mission system, quote-unquote tag mission, so that'd be very different, obviously, as a side campaign to explore the relationships between these characters with actual fleshed out levels, with the level design and encounter design of the campaign, of the same caliber of the campaign at least. Maybe even make them a mode where you can run through campaign levels with someone else, or even with 2 characters. But that's speaking the future again. It just feels like a missed opportunity. Again, this is a remaster, not a remake. You can't really expect them to be plugging in entire new features like that. But it was frustrating. That said, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It is on Game Pass presently. I don't think I would buy this game for $70. I don't think I would buy it for $60. I think I would buy this for probably $40. It did come out, I think, in the 360 era. It did come out in the 360 era, which I think the going price for a game was $50, $40 to $50. I think that's appropriate here. It's got a lot of replayability. As long as you have things to master, I imagine it'll continue to be very fun for me in the future. I want to get to know all these weapons and understand their mechanics and to try and get through on the hardest difficulty. Maybe build up to that first. That said, if you agree, if you disagree, if you liked, if you dislike, make your voices known in the comments. Give a like, dislike, maybe a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.